listening to Between Two Bridges, a business-to-business podcast. With your hosts, Anthony R. Destiny, Joe Ferrani, and Jerry Kenna. Interviewing entrepreneurs, business operators, and investors. This episode of Between Two Bridges is sponsored by Paymark Payroll. Payday is the most important day to your most important people, and payday is made easy at www.payyourpeople.com.
Ready, Joe?
Yeah, I'm ready. Fuck it.
Alrighty, another episode of Between Two Bridges. Here with my co-hosts. We're discussing current events, topics that impact consumers, entrepreneurs. And occasionally have guests as well.
Yeah. These kind of things that we talk about here are kind of impacting everyone.
Try to put money back in your pockets, or at least discuss things going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
keep you up to date.
Everyday financial struggle to stay alive.
Yeah.
A few articles last week. Nearly 75% of Americans think tipping has gotten out of control.
Has it ever?
Tipping has increased on average from 10 to 25% over the last decade.
Yeah, I read an article that said that there's now self-checkout kiosks that are requesting tips.
Sounds about right.
So they're paying the machines? Or?
Yeah, that's my question is who gets the tips do I get the tip? I'm checking myself out.
Well, yeah, is Giant Eagle getting the tip?
Yeah.
Like, are they just cashing in on this phenomenon?
Under federal law, employees are able to pay tipped workers only $2.13 an hour.
Yeah, and in PA, it's $2.83. So servers, bartenders, delivery drivers, $2.83 an hour. My experience, because I do payroll services as one of the sponsors, Paymark Payroll, shameless plug. We do handle some payroll for some restaurants and things like that. I can tell you that finding a delivery driver to work for $2.83 an hour is a thing of the past.
100%.
Not going to happen. So
you seeing them getting a wage?
You're not gonna. In fact, I mean, I've been doing this a long time, and even, I haven't seen a delivery driver make less than minimum wage, and I can't even tell you. Most of these places are paying $10, $15 an hour to delivery drivers, so they're not even getting minimum wage anymore. But not that they shouldn't get tips. I mean, most of the time they're using their cars, their gas.
Yeah.
My biggest problem with a lot of the services you use is like, you order pizza now, mostly you're ordering online.
Yeah.
And then you're tipping up front.
Yeah.
You know, I know I've talked about it on here before, but you give 25%, you expect maybe you skip the other guy and you get to my house first, but that's not always the case.
Yeah.
And then you forget my 2 liter of pop, and it's like, well, now you made your $7.35 tip.
Yeah.
Your shit sucked, and you're never going to learn. I mean, maybe that's old school of me to say, but tipping should come after.
Yeah.
And if you don't put the tip on the card, you're really going to get shit service. And if you get, you know what I mean? Like
they expect it up front now.
Right.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It's a weird world. And my big question is, like, you go into any of these places, like coffee shops, you go to Starbucks, you go to, any of these places now, and they all have the terminals that they just, if they ask a couple questions and they turn the thing around and there's not a couple questions, it's here, tip me now.
Yeah.
But, they're not, if you're working at a coffee shop, you're not making $2.83 an hour. It would be illegal to pay that person $2.83 an hour.
You imagine the strike Starbucks employees would have if they were making $2.83.
They can't. They're legally not allowed to pay them $2.83 an hour. They're not a server. They're not legally allowed to pay them that. So, and Starbucks, I'm sure they're paying probably $15 an hour. But nevertheless, my big question is who's getting that tip? And if you're tipping that, first of all, if you're paying $4 for a cup of coffee, are you a cheapskate if you're not throwing another $1 on that cup of coffee? First of all. Second of all, is that all getting pulled at the end? And is the manager that's managing that place, that's probably on a salary, making a decent amount of money, are they getting a piece of that too? Or is it just the person that's taking the order? Is it the barista? There's no definition to it. I mean, it almost seems like there should be something on there like, like if I owned the coffee shop and I was asking for tips, I think I would put up a sign that says managers don't get the tips. Owners don't get the tips.
Or like back in the boardwalk days, the t-shirt shops would have a tip jar and say beer fund. So at least you knew where it was going.
Yeah. I mean, I would want to make it clear that the tips go to the barista and the front counter people. My
other question would be is, say you pay with your debit card and you do give a $1 tip. Mm-hmm. Only 97 cents or 96 cents is going to go back to as the tip and the
that's not processing. That's not even the case though, because a lot of that time, in my experience with dealing with the restaurant world, if you go and say your bill is $100 and you get your check, it's $100, you leave a $20 tip, you're paying $120, right? So the restaurant gets $120. They're paying, call it 3% for a credit card fee. So they're getting $120 minus 3%. Well, a lot of restaurants are paying that $20 out, even though it's going in a credit card tip. A lot of times they're paying out in cash at the end of the night. They're cashing out those servers. They're paying that $20 out. So the restaurants are actually eating that 3%.
Right. Oh.
So the servers aren't eating that 3%. The restaurant is. So I don't know, man. There's just
that was always a problem we had before. Like, I'm talking way before ATM machines were readily available. People would come into the store and they'd pick up, $20 for the dry cleaning and then ask you to run it for $60 so they could get $40. And then you're
losing money on
I'll do it, but you know what? You just cost me 50 cents, it's like
adds up.
Yeah. And if you don't watch your pennies, your dollars will follow them.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know where it ends. I think about it in my specific business, like we've talked about it, is it fair that we don't ask for a tip at this point? Like, I have a delivery driver on the road. He drops the clothes off. People will say how great he is. What if they got a text message that said, would you like to tip? Because we have credit cards on file. Yeah, everybody throws $5. At the end of next year, when we're talking about payroll and raises, I could be like, you're good. You made an extra $2,000 last year on tips.
Yeah.
I mean, he does like 5,000 deliveries. He makes a dime on each one. It adds up.
Yeah.
And I've always had that gripe about the restaurant owners is like a lot of their payroll cost was covered by tips. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's changing now.
It is and it isn't. I mean, there's some pressure to change that, but then again, I mean, and I think we've talked about this in previous episodes, but if you start pushing that change and you say all of a sudden that the restaurants have to start paying $7.25 or $10 to their servers, that's going to directly impact the price of the food.
Right. Which, I mean, I say it all the time, like things like this kind of police themselves.
Yeah.
Somewhat. But I think the move away from cash has done a lot of this.
Yeah,
too.
It has. It's made it way more complicated, especially for the restaurants that cash out the tips at the end of the night because there's no cash to do it.
Before you're pulling it out of your wallet, now you're getting presented an iPad with 10, 15, 20%. What do you want to leave as opposed to, all right, I got $3 left.
Yeah.
That on the table.
That's I love some of the old school establishments I'll frequent from time to time. You just throw 40 on that bar, you have your 6 or 7 beers and you head on down the road and just leave the change,
Right.
But I don't know. I also think that there's a benefit to all this because we're talking about it. I think that they do want to eliminate cash because now this is a total trackable number. Mm-hmm. There's no more bartenders making $140,000 a year sitting on a stack of cash.
But there's still bartenders and servers that are making 6 figures.
Oh, absolutely. And they want them to pay their fair share of tax on that 6 figures.
Yeah.
They don't want you filling out, I made $25,000 last year.
The average tip has doubled since 1982.
Yeah, and I think, and honestly, I mean, we talk about it every single week, but I think COVID had a huge. I'd be interested to see if there's any statistic to see what changed in tipping pre-2020 and after. because I know personally, I've changed my tipping habits after COVID, and probably still have, but I'm a little bit different. I don't frequent chain restaurants very often.
Right.
I typically deal with mom and pop, small restaurants, local places. I prefer to deal with somebody that locally owned, small businesses, plus servers that I know. You know what I mean? People that local community, putting it back into local community, not only owners in the local community, but employees in the local community.
Yeah, I guess we're on the outside of it looking in as far as my business, but like I feel, you walk into an establishment and you order a pizza and you pick it up and, then you got a tip and you're like, well, see, what the fuck?
So that's the other thing is there's a lot of that too. And if you pick up, so that's a question. If you pick up food, if you do takeout, do you tip on a takeout order?
Well, like you said, depending. Like if I'm going to like McDonald's or like Burger King, you don't tip. But like if I go to like Velchie's on the hill here, I'll throw money down because I like them there and I like want them to like me. I want that like, hey Norm experience when I go there. Yeah. But I just feel like enough's enough, Yeah. You're already charging me $58 for 2 large pizzas. I've already driven here to pick it up. And like, that's what I say about the restaurant owner. Like, if you feel like you're worth more money than that, then tell your boss to pay you.
A third of Americans feel pressured into tipping.
Yeah, I mean, there's two sides of it.
30% of a transaction.
Yeah, it's two sides of it too. You don't want to tip because you don't want to say you suck.
Right.
And 2, you don't want to tip because then you leave and they're like, look at this broke motherfucker. Yeah, look at this cheap motherfucker.
Bastard. So is it an ego thing, Joe? Or
it could be all of the above. I mean, especially if
ego
it's public.
Or is it shame? I mean, I was watching an interview with Dave Portnoy and he's like, I don't want to, he's like, I tip a lot of times in situations he was even talking about the self-service checkout. He's like, I'm afraid somebody's going to be like, it's going to be all over the internet that Dave Portnoy is a cheap ass that doesn't tip. And
probably is.
It probably is, yeah. He's like, so I tip all the time because I'm afraid that somebody's going to call me out on it, even if he's tipping a kiosk. I mean,
we talked about it. It's $60,000 worth of leisure expending that goes in. What's 25% on $60,000? I mean, that's your tip budget for the year. I mean, it's a lot of fucking loot.
Yeah, it's a lot of money, man. So, I mean, I don't know. It's a touchy subject because you don't want to come off as that you don't appreciate people in the service industry. And I stop a lot of days and get a cup of coffee in the morning and try to go to small coffee shops rather than Starbucks. Although I do go to Starbucks and then, you talk shit on the chains, but the employees are all still the same people, right?
Doing the same job.
They're just people just because the company that owns the restaurant itself or the location itself is a corporate chain doesn't mean that the people are any less valuable. But, you try to, I go to these places and I want to show my appreciation to the work that they're doing in there, but gets to a point where I'm spending, I'll get a medium latte or something like that, and it's almost $6 for a medium coffee. And Jesus Christ, I mean, how much more money do I have to pay?
Right, and you're saying like you want to show appreciation in our industry. You do a good job. The appreciation is they come back.
Right.
Well, you get your taxes done once a year, and an average person uses a dry cleaning 7 times a year. So like, where's our tip, motherfuckers? Is what I'm saying. Like I want a $100 bill. And like that's the other thing as a business owner, which is nice. All right, well, we're not getting any tips. Tips were down last year at Christmas, which is for our drivers. Christmas is a big nut. They get a significant amount of most of their tips all year come that certain time. Mm-hmm. Well, last year it was down.
You track it?
Well, just in verbal conversation, like I don't write it down or anything, but we were talking and I remembered that it was down last year significantly. And I said, you know what I think it equates to? It's not that you did anything different this year or that we did anything different this year. It has 100% to do with people who are sick of getting asked.
Yeah.
So they're not going to volunteer the tip anymore because they're like, I've been tipping everybody all year.
Yeah.
So the $20 gift cards at Christmas time, they're out the door.
Yeah.
Like people aren't doing it.
Yeah.
And the other thing with tipping too, and we said about an ego thing, the people that don't have it are probably the people that tip the most. Because like we see all walks of life in our business, and the people that you don't expect, like our driver will come back and be like, they gave me $50. They'll spend $150 all year in dry cleaning. And then we go to people that spend $8,000 a year and won't give a dime.
Yeah.
So usually the people that tip best are people
maybe the guy that spent $8,000 is like, fuck, I gave that guy enough.
Or they've never worked in the service industry too.
Yeah.
Because that was always a big thing. I delivered pizzas, so I always took care of my pizza delivery driver. But I don't take care of my Amazon guy.
So if you order pizza, not online, you actually have a driver come in. Driver shows up, pizza. What's the tip?
20-25%.
You actually do a percentage for a driver?
Well, let's just say it's $37. I'm going to give him $50. I don't want to go down to the cent, I'm not worried about it.
Yeah.
But like, I'll take care of him.
Yeah. I'll at least double the first number.
Makes sense. Yeah. So if it's
20%.
Yeah. That's a good
way to look at it. Okay. All right. I might change my ways.
Sunny weather increases tipping by 24%.
People in Pittsburgh getting fucked.
Yeah,
if your server leaves a heart on the receipt, it increases it by 17%. People in the South generally tip more than people in the North.
Except for Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh big tippers.
Pretty wild. So reach out to us.
Yeah,
let us know.
I want to know.
Much you're
in the comments.
Here's some life advice for you. If a bartender puts a heart at the bottom of the receipt, no matter how much you tip, you are not going to go home with her, and she is not going to give you her number.
Yeah,
she's working for tips.
I think we could probably read into that heart thing a little bit.
Yeah,
because dudes aren't leaving any hearts. Girls aren't leaving hearts on other girls' receipts.
That's true.
So the hearts are going on. The girls are putting.
Yeah, they're going after single guys.
They call you babe.
And that dude's looking at it and be like, dude, she left me a heart. I think I'm going to leave her a little extra.
Millennials
Maybe
took
I'll
the
have a
least.
number.
He's on a podcast later that night like, dude, I fell in love with this bartender.
She's into me, dude. She left a heart on my receipt.
She loves me. Bro. You should have seen the way she looked at me.
She was into me, man. She just wanted that extra 24%, bro.
Preferred it was in cash.
But in the days of inflation, man, it's like you said, watch your pennies or you start losing dollars. Right?
That's right. That's a savings tip that I've heard. It's like pay attention to your pennies and the dollars will follow. Well, I guess it works in reverse. If you don't pay attention to your pennies, it can go both ways,
Yeah, and it can be argued both ways too, that if you can't afford to tip, you can't afford the coffee to begin with. But at the same time, like, when is enough? If I go in and if I'm checking myself out, I mean, there's arguments that are like, I don't work at Walmart. I don't want to use a self-checkout. I want a customer or a cashier to ring me up. I mean, I've not made that argument. Like, sometimes I like the self-checkout just because I want to get in and get out, and I don't want to.
I feel it's faster.
Yeah, I just want to deal with it, right?
Yeah.
So I've had people make that argument to me. Like, I didn't apply for a job. I don't want to use a cash register. Okay, I get that. But if I'm so along that argument, like, if I'm ringing myself out, who the hell am I tipping?
Yeah, I mean,
I should get a cut.
Or God forbid you miss an item and then you're standing in front of the store getting accused of stealing shit. You know what I mean? Like,
and all over the internet.
Yeah, well, it can happen. We've seen it.
It can happen.
So the other one that I've talked to people about was like, you got a contractor that comes to your house. He gives you a quote, $5,000. He's there 5 days, busting his ass. You're just assuming that he was correct in his quote. Deal comes to an end. Contractor will eat that $500 if they go over most of the times. Like, if it's like something, because you're taking pride in your estimate. Well, do you tip the guy on day 5 when he's leaving? you give him like an extra $500, or you just?
I've gotten tips.
You have?
Say that, yeah.
Like, is it for like rush experiences?
I've also messed up estimates too and eaten it, so it's almost a wash.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like a guy tells me he wants to make $1,200 for a job. I'm giving him $1,200. We're straight. Yeah. But then, like in this instance, he had to come back on an extra day to do like a little bit of work, and I was going to give him extra money, And I'm thinking, you know what? No, if he would have worked a little bit harder yesterday, he probably would have got it done.
Yeah, so it depends on the situation, but I've actually had situations with contractors that I'm like, hey, listen, here's the deadline, and if you beat it, I'll give you extra.
Oh, nice.
Right. Incentivize, yeah.
Yeah.
But like at the end of the deal, they're not giving you a credit card machine saying, do you want to tip 20%?
Right.
Little kiosk.
Swinging the kiosk
And
around.
not to say
25% tip for me?
Yeah, not
20, 25.
Yeah, not to say that like restaurant workers don't deserve it, but like I've seen some work that people do. Like putting a roof on a house is probably a little bit harder than sliding a cheeseburger out.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know where it ends. It ends with people just being like, fuck it, I'm done tipping.
Yeah.
I'll just stay home and eat.
That's how Europe is. They don't really tip. It's not culture.
Yeah, right. In Europe it's different, but the staff, the servers in Europe get a full wage.
Right.
They're not getting $2.83 an hour.
I'm totally cool with transparency. Like if the pizza is now $60 when it comes to my house instead of $48, I'm cool with that. Then I know I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
I would be totally fine with that. It's going to take some companies to step up and do it. You know, like Starbucks is going to have to take away the tipping.
So it's weird though, because how do you make that change? If I'm a restaurant owner, right, and all the other restaurants are selling a cheeseburger for $12, and they're paying $2.83 an hour, right? But I want to pay everybody $10 an hour, so I got to charge $25 for that cheeseburger. How do I compete?
Well, there was a restaurant that just did that locally that they don't take tips. I forget who it was. It was like maybe a year ago. They just
did they shut down? Did they close?
No, I think they're still in business. Oh. But I think you appeal to people that are like, fuck, I'm done tipping.
Yeah.
You know, you just like every other business, you have your group of people that are going to visit your business. And if they go and the burger's the best burger in the world. And
I just wonder if because if I'm a server, I don't know if I want to go work for $15 an hour because I can make more than that. If I'm waiting on 5 tables,
right,
and I can turn those tables, I can maybe make way more money if I can take tips.
Yeah. Salary versus commission.
Yeah,
You're kind of betting on yourself.
I don't know that. Here's the thing, and this happens so much, and I think we have a couple other things to talk about, and one of them for sure. Yeah, one of them for sure, we have politicians that are making decisions that they don't have any idea anything about. But this is one of them too. So a lot of times we find where outside people are trying to set policy because they feel bad about a situation they don't understand.
Right.
Okay, so you have people that work in Washington or Harrisburg or wherever they might work that have never waited tables that are like, hey, it's not fair that these people only make $2.83 an hour. And we need to fix this. But if you ask a server that's like $2.83, I don't make $2.83 an hour. I made $120,000 last year. Like, I don't know that it's the servers that are leading this charge for fair wages.
We say it all the time, follow the money though. If the federal government feels like they're missing out on a huge untaxed amount of wages, then but I mean, if every restaurant in Pittsburgh cuts $20,000 off of income tax because they're pocketing that money,
so eliminate the cash.
Yeah,
so that's their other angle,
right? And cash is dirty. We all know it.
Yeah, it's dirty.
It's dirty.
Yeah, but that's the thing. So I think that we need to. I think for people that are listening that might think like, hey, yeah, it's not right that people are making $2.83 an hour and are listening to the media and politicians and all these people that are spinning this as this is this civil rights or this is this equal pay, this, you know what I'm saying? Like we need to help these people that are waiting tables and need to make more money. Look around at the people that are leading the charge and consider that whenever you are joining the fight, because I do payroll for a good bit of restaurants in the restaurant industry, and I think they're pretty happy. I mean, I know that there's some servers that are making a lot of money and they're not making $2.83 an hour. They're not making minimum wage. They're making way more than $7.25 an hour. They're making way more than $15 an hour.
And most of them enjoy the job. Like you either have it in you to be a server and
Some
a
days.
bartender,
Yeah.
or you don't.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people that know you can make a lot of money in
It's
it.
just like anything else. There's
But they
days
don't
that
wanna
it
do it.
fucking sucks.
Yeah.
And there's days that it's probably a lot of fun.
I had a rant on this podcast about a fucking bad Tuesday. Remember that? And that happens in every profession.
But a server can make a lot of money depending on the restaurant, depending on the situation. But a lot of times you have the media and you have politicians and you have these warriors out there that are trying to save the world. And a lot of times they're trying to save the world and they're trying to fix problems that the people that supposedly have these problems aren't trying to fix. And they're like, hey, I don't want to make $15 an hour. Knock it off. I don't want to eliminate tips because I make way more money than $15 an hour. So shut the fuck up and go sit down. Find somebody else's life to try to fuck up.
Yeah, there's so many examples of that. I was doing a lot of research on a piece of equipment for the dry cleaners, and there was like a low emissions boiler. And I was like, oh, that's great. It makes you sound like you're going to save money. And like they're only, to legally have a boiler in California, you have to have a low NOx boiler. To have one in Texas, low NOx. Well, I'm thinking like, this is great. I'm going to save money. So I called the manufacturer, asked them the difference, and they were like, no, you will burn more gas because it mixes with air. It's about the air pollution coming out of the boiler on the end of it, not saving. You use 30% more gas. I'm like, so we're just going to keep burning gas.
Yeah.
And then like everything you do in this country, it's like there's 5 people in a room that make a decision.
Yeah.
It would be like us being able to create a law today saying, you know what? We're going to legalize marijuana. We decided. We've made it a rule.
Yeah. And we have no idea anything about it, but we're just going to make that change. Yeah. There's a lot of that. There's a lot of that in this world.
Yeah. I saw one TikTok video. I know everything about the topic and march on. Yeah.
Let's do it.
Speaking of dipshits, the Federal Reserve Wednesday said it's holding interest rates at the current level. It's a 23-year high that they've been at for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
So,
but on the bright side, they said it's not likely to go up anymore.
Yay!
Policymakers
Policymakers believe interest rates are restrictive enough.
Oh, good.
Sweet.
Sounds great.
They also announced they're easing their grip on the economy, blah, 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 by shrinking their balance sheet.
And at the end of this article, they asked for a tip.
And I'm supposed to tip 15%. But anybody with credit card balances or looking to get into real estate, what else, Jerry?
Well,
buying cars.
Yeah, rates suck.
This
Rates are
impacts
high.
everybody.
Yeah, so the article that I read said that they are likely, that the plan was that they were going to lower rates at least once, maybe twice this year. Now they're saying maybe once, probably not. They are they're pretty much ruling out the chances of having to increase it, but I guess that inflation is sitting at around 2.7%. They want to see it at 2%. In order to bring inflation down, they have to keep rates high. That's their claim. Inflation is pretty bad. We've talked about that over and over again. Rates being high right now has been really hard on anybody doing anything anywhere. Whether you're buying a car, buying a house to live in, buying a house to rent, trying to borrow money for your business, trying to put anything on a credit card. I mean, it's been out of control.
Just to play devil's advocate, maybe it'll teach people to live with inside their means.
Yeah, that's not gonna happen.
Because there's a whole generation before us that figured it out.
There's a whole, I don't know. You're on TikTok, right? You do a little,
Me personally,
scrolling.
Yeah, oh yeah.
You do a little scrolling, right?
A little scrolling.
A little flipping through. There's like, I keep getting all these videos from these people that basically just shame other people because of all their debt. I don't really understand why people put themselves on these shows where they basically just get yelled at. I guess Dave Ramsey made it made it popular to talk
Call
people.
in and I'll tell you how terrible you are.
Yeah, how
fucked you are.
Yeah, you're
I
stupid.
love when the conversation starts with, I have a 2007 Yukon.
Yeah.
How much you owe? He's like, you're fucked.
Yeah. Sell everything.
Right.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think that people will refuse to. I think that especially this younger generation. I mean, I see stuff on that and I'm like, man, I don't know how these people tie their shoes. I bought a car and I borrowed the money for the sales tax and registration, but that part of the loan was 26%.
Right. I just put it on a credit card.
Yeah, it's just I don't know that anybody is. I don't know that lesson is going to be learned. And the other thing too, Joe, is that rates are high, but rates aren't high like 80s high.
Right.
No, right.
It's been worse.
Yeah, I remember talking to an older real estate agent. They used to have a rate book, and it went all the way up to like 39.5%.
Jeez. Could you imagine?
Yeah, worst case scenario is 39.5%. You're like, I'll live in a fucking van down by the river.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think too that like we're learning to like use the bank's money. You know, if you're in business for yourself, I'm running this a couple times. I'm like, man, I really don't want to spend that money, but I should spend it on the business. And then like I forget that there's this tool called the bank that'll lend you money. You know, you don't have to take your bank account to zero, spend their money, keep yours.
Yep.
So
they're happy to give it to you, especially with rates this high. But I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see. Honestly, I think the bigger issue right now is that these banks, there's just so much uncertainty because of the condition of the economy right now. I mean, you wouldn't know that by listening to the media, the politicians, but the banks right now it's really hard to get them to lend.
Yeah.
I mean, deals that, I've turned in deals for clients that are home runs that take way longer than they used to, that there's questions being asked that I'm like, why are they even asking that? That's fucking stupid. Banks that are turning, like not even looking at things that are just too complicated. We actually had, I think we said something before, we had a bank that said that wouldn't do a deal because the business owner's success didn't seem common. It was uncommonly high.
Yeah.
His profits are uncommonly high.
Okay.
Oh, okay. And then it just takes, I don't know, it takes a lot longer for banks to turn around. But, there's still banks out there lending. It just takes a little bit longer to get things done, and the rates are just tough. But it's just harder to make moves because of that. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. And then with rates coming down, with rates going up, everybody was hoping that the houses were going to start to come down in price, and they didn't.
I haven't seen that. Yeah.
So with rates going down, are they going to keep going up again?
Yeah, right. We talk about it all the time. If you're sitting in a $400,000 house and you want to move,
you can't.
And you have a 2.5-3% mortgage.
Yeah.
You'll be living in a $250,000 house paying the same amount of money.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really bad.
The common sense of it is all screwed. Maybe rates got too low for too long, and they should have adjusted them then. A little adjustment back then might have helped flatten this out. But
have you changed your borrowing habits, Joe, business-wise?
Oh yeah. Significantly.
Yeah. Less.
Yeah. I talk about spending my own money. I didn't have the money to buy the building in the bank, so we went for that. And no, because I think when you're in business, you either grow or you die. So who cares what the rate is? You got to keep moving forward. And then my hopes is that maybe rates are high for 3 or 4 years. You aggressively pay off your loans because the rates are high. And then they drop down, you refinance everything, and you're living very comfortably.
Well, yeah. What's that? Real estate agents use this all the time.
Marry the rate.
Marry the
house, date the rate.
Marry the house, date the rate.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can always refinance.
So I'm just going to pay the fucker off.
Yeah.
Once they get me angry enough, I'm just going to write them the big old squiggly line check and be like, I'm done.
Yeah.
So, we talk about the house values all the time. So like my house is appraised at X, but like the family that was going to live in that size of a house, they're not going to want to pay that kind of money because they're going to be paying, $3,000-$4,000 a month to live in that house.
Yeah, I just had this conversation with somebody the other day about a property that I'm looking at and what it'll likely appraise for, and it's for sale right now, and it's for sale for less than what I think it would actually appraise for. And their question was, well, why is it not selling? And I said, because the appraised value is different than what it'll actually sell for,
right?
Especially in the neighborhood that it's in, and especially in the economic climate that we're in right now.
Which is a Pittsburgh kind of climate. Hot, cold.
Yeah. I mean, things are weird right now. And especially in commercial real estate, I mean, there's a lot of uncertainty and there's a lot of question marks. And
yeah.
And there's a lot of people that, I mean, in the property that we're looking at, it's a decent dollar amount. So you're going to need a lot of money down. How many people want to put that kind of money down?
Or have it.
And that makes shit sit.
Yeah. And when you're trying to invest and flip, you can't have shit sit.
Yeah. So
I think though, like maybe what we'll learn and what we'll want to teach our kids throughout all of this craziness is don't wait for tomorrow.
You can't.
Because, some of us, I waited and I'm locked in at a higher rate than I should have been. And I should have just did what I had to do before. But like I said, I was never one to use the bank as a tool. But the older I get, the more I learn that
debt is a tool.
Yeah. As long as it's good debt. There's bad debt.
Yeah. You have to be able to, everything that we do, I've talked about this before with people, but like we have debt. I have rental properties. I have a car. I don't hesitate. If I have to take out debt, I take out debt, right? But everything I do, I have an exit strategy. So I make sure, especially like I bought the Corvette, right? When I financed that, there was an exit strategy involved. Make sure that if shit hits the fan, that loan is much less than what that car is going to be worth.
Right.
Because I need to be able to sell that shit. And I love that car, and I've wanted that car since I was old enough to be able to say the word Corvette. And
16, man.
Yeah, 2. And I picked it out and picked out every single option on it, and it was like a life dream for me. But I can tell you something right now: if shit hit the fan tomorrow, that motherfucker's gone.
Yeah,
because I'll sell that thing way before I lose anything else.
Right.
It is what it is. I'll get another one. You just have to rebound. It's part of the grind.
I mean, we've talked about this early on in this show. Like, if you're not afraid to go broke, the fuck? Yeah. Who cares? You'll be fine. I've been broke before. I think I had like $370 in the bank when I met my wife. And like, I don't think I had a car. I had a company vehicle.
Yeah.
So like, when I took her on my first date, I did a side job for a guy in Ford City installing equipment so I could take her on like a real first date, or else we would have went to like Burger King. She'd have been like, rape van, Burger King, I'm fucking out. So yeah, you don't want to go back there. I mean, part of me like wants my kids to like go back there for a second. Like when they're in their 15, like, we can't afford it. You're fucked.
Yeah.
I know we've debated that on the show on what to do with kids in terms of handouts, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I mean, my kids...
Or setting them up for success.
Mm-hmm.
I think our kids are all... Maybe Vinny is the closest one to like starting to get it a little bit more, but like our younger kids, it's kind of like, slow down, pump the brakes, like enjoy this. They're little, you have plenty of time to explain to them how much the world sucks. Like my 7-year-old doesn't care. She still believes in unicorns and the Easter Bunny. Let her be a kid. Once she's 12, then I can explain to her how bad everybody sucks. And there is no Easter Bunny. Ooh, shit.
Well,
the cat's out, or the rabbit's out of the hat.
Got to be 18 to listen to the show anyway, so.
Yeah.
And now a brief word from our sponsor.
This episode of Between Two Bridges is sponsored by Paymark Payroll. Are you tired of spending countless hours juggling payroll calculations, tax filings, and compliance regulations? Well, say goodbye to that chore and let Paymark Payroll take the burden off your shoulders. With our secure online portal, you can access your business information from any internet location, even your phone. Employees will love the ability to receive direct deposits, and they can access all their pay stubs, tax forms, and information through their own portal. Focus on growing your business while we take care of the rest. With top-notch customer support, we're always here to assist you with anything, at any time. Don't let payroll stress hold you back. Choose Paymark Payroll and experience the freedom to thrive. Contact us at payyourpeople.com for a personalized consultation and a demonstration of our powerful payroll solutions, and see how Paymark Payroll can better your workflow. That's payyourpeople.com. Join the growing list of satisfied businesses that have embraced the convenience and efficiency of Paymark. Payday made easy. Your business deserves nothing less than the best, and that's exactly what Paymark Payroll delivers. Now back to the show.
Speaking of adult decisions,
My favorite one.
Kids, if you're listening,
tune out.
tune out. This might be for your
Drop
parents
in
only.
and-
Just
Turn
say
out
no
is
to
everything.
drugs.
Wednesday, the USDEA chose to reclassify marijuana as a less dangerous drug.
Yeah.
Marijuana's not a drug. You
not
ever
a drug.
suck toe for marijuana?
So since, I guess, the war on drugs, who was that, Nixon or Reagan? I always mix them up. Nixon?
It's Nancy Reagan. She was
Yeah, just say no.
Yep.
But since those times, it's been a Schedule I drug alongside LSD, heroin, etc. Moving to potentially a Schedule III, which would mean you could get it through a pharmacist, right? So right now there's dispensaries and
Yeah, I don't know that they haven't really. There's not a whole lot of information out there exactly what it means as far as the changes. There's a little bit. I read this thing here.
Got your handy dandy notes. Look at this guy
Yeah.
coming prepared. You
I
can
did.
tell it's not tax season
it's
anymore.
got paper.
I had to do some research on this. This was
It's an actual paper.
because there's some tax implications to this that I've been kind of following because I'm curious.
Can you write off weed, Jerry?
No, not
If you
as a
buy it for all
purchaser.
your employees.
Meals and entertainment.
Yeah.
So this is from the Congressional Research Service, which is actually was a
Official.
.gov website, so it is official. It was interesting because I was curious. I was listening to the Joe Rogan podcast with Tulsi Gabbard, and they brought this up, and I was curious about it. So basically, marijuana's been a Schedule I drug, like you said, under the Controlled Substance Act since the war on drugs. And so it was on the same level, like you said, as LSD, heroin, most narcotics, cocaine, things like that, with no medical use, no federally legal use. You were not federally allowed to manufacture it, not federally allowed to use it, not federally allowed to sell it. Obviously, people listening to this are like, wait a second, there's a dispensary down the street from my house. My cousin has a card that says he's allowed to smoke it anytime he wants. So a number of years ago, there's a lot of states now that, I think this actually said most states, like over almost 40 states have legalized it for medical purposes, and then like 24 states for recreational use. But it has remained federally illegal, which has had implications for a lot of things. So
Taxation, one of them.
taxation being a big one, banking being a big one. The big one that changes with this is now, as of right now, or before this change, and I think this change is announced, but it takes time to kick in. I don't think it actually is kicked in yet, from what I understand. But prior to it's Schedule 1, if you own a dispensary or a grow operation or whatever tier of the marijuana industry in a state that is legal, you're actually not allowed to write off any deductions on your federal tax return. So so that you understand what that means, if you own a dispensary and say you had $2 million worth of sales last year, and you paid your rent, and you paid your employees, and of course you had to buy the product that you sold.
And build outs.
And your build
These
out.
places aren't cheap.
I'm sure not. You have all these expenses, right? So just like any other retail store, you have all these expenses, right? Say, for instance, you have, what did I say, $2 million in sales? Say, for instance, your expenses were $3 million. So you actually lost $1 million last year. You still had to pay taxes on $2 million. So you pay taxes on your gross revenue because it was unlawful to deduct any expenses on a federal tax return because it was considered federally illegal. So as you can imagine, these companies have been paying a lot of federal taxes.
No loophole in that? No, like, hey, we also sell...
Not unless you want to add federal tax fraud to your list of
say you
unlawful activities.
You have a dispensary and you're like, we're going to sell cricket phones on the side.
Somebody asked me that. They're like, well, can't you just like serve breakfast in the morning and say your payroll is all for that? And I'm like, that's, tax fraud. But no. I don't think you'd get away with it, honestly. And I think that considering you have a marijuana license that you probably paid your state a hefty amount of money for, you're probably under a pretty substantial microscope. So I don't know how they're getting away with it. I don't have any clients that own any sort of marijuana businesses. But
people that, they were touting some large numbers of potential indoor grow facilities here in Western PA. I mean, to build a $5 to $10 million facility and not be able to write
anything off.
A screw off of the whole thing.
Right. So by making this Schedule 3, you are now permitted to write off expenses on your federal tax return. So this is, if nothing else, a massive tax savings to anybody that has a marijuana related business. Huge tax savings, which is, a win for that industry. There's some other things that they're talking about that this could change. So basically, by moving it to Schedule 3, just to give you an idea of what that means, because most people don't know. Schedule 3, other Schedule 3 drugs, for instance, is like Tylenol with codeine, ketamine, things like that. So
not like it's
regulated.
Go to the Tylenol phase of the things. Like we can't.
It's not over the counter. Yeah. It's still regulated. But there's a lot of questions. Like, we've built this industry across the entire country of having to buy it from a dispensary, and you have all these dispensaries popping up all over the country. Well, I buy Tylenol with codeine from Walgreens. So does that mean that by doing this, they've put all these dispensaries out of business? I can't imagine that they have, because these dispensaries have paid a lot of money to the states for their licenses. So I'd imagine that they're going to build some sort of legal structure around those, that you have to have, like it's some sort of specialized medication that you have to get at a special pharmacy / dispensary. I would imagine.
Critics point out that as a Schedule 3, dispensaries would have to register with the DEA like pharmacies, fulfill strict reporting requirements, something that they have not had to do and that the DEA is ill-equipped to handle.
Yeah,
I read that.
And if they're going to have to fill this out and you have a medical marijuana card and you're going in and you're buying it for 9 people on your street, they might start looking at usage and be like, your consumption in order, it might regulate it a little bit more than deregulate it.
That brings me to that comment that I made earlier about politicians that are trying to regulate something they don't understand. So one of the things that's funny is it's clear that some of the people that are writing these laws don't have an iota of a clue.
You were going to say ounce.
I was going to say an ounce. I wasn't.
So be here all night, folks.
They're so there's rules on how much you're allowed to have, because there's obviously issues with people buying it and then reselling it. So they have to put limits on how much you're allowed to have for quote unquote legal consumption. And I read, and I don't think it was in here but I read that there's some sort of like, I read 10 ounces, which is a ridiculous amount. But they were like, well, a beer's 12 ounces.
Yeah. Yeah, I've always, like, I'm not a big marijuana user. Actually, if you ever see me out and about and I'm smoking a vape pen or smoking marijuana, walk the other direction, because the beer has officially kicked my ass. And my beer is my gateway drug to other things. And I've never really understood the concept of being able to go to the liquor store and buy 151 Everclear at 21 years old, but yet you can't go buy a little medium, like pre-rolly J's or something. Like, you can't get like 2 joints and just relax. It's a weird concept to me.
Yeah. So there's people that are trying to make rules that don't understand that like 10 ounces of marijuana is a lot.
I've always felt like there was, and I don't know if this is factual, but there was this story, like when I think Colorado was the first state to do it. When they started legalizing marijuana, there was like these rumors that these dispensaries were only taking cash.
They are.
And they had so much cash that they couldn't put it in the bank because the banks didn't want it.
Well,
they didn't know what to do with it.
That's part of the problem here. So, and that's the other implication with the Schedule 1. They're not bankable. So because it's federally illegal, they can't have bank accounts. They can't borrow from a bank. They can't take credit cards. There's so many implications. And so they've been arguing, politicians have been arguing over the Safe Banking Act.
They want to know how they can get their hands in on the profits.
I'm sure. But that's the thing, is that right now, a big argument for the Safe Banking Act is that these dispensaries are dealing with ridiculous amounts of cash because they can't bank it.
Well, some of them are running them through. You can use your debit card
as an ATM transaction.
Right.
Yeah, I have a credit card processing business, so I know all about this. So they run them as an ATM transaction.
Right.
So like if your bill's like $48, they run it for $50 and give you $2 back. But it's an ATM transaction. It's not a credit card processing transaction. Now, what I don't understand is on the back end of that, where does that money go? Because it can't go into a bank. So they have to be there. It must be some sort of intermediary. I don't know how it's working, but there's rules about the banking, and a lot of banks will not touch.
Right. And a lot of money's going out to the dispensaries.
Right.
And the banks, once it goes out, it can't come back. A lot of money's going out of circulation.
Yeah. So I was reading into this. There's a lot of people that there's violence at these dispensaries where people are coming in and robbing them because of the ridiculous amounts of cash that they have on hand. When you're dealing with that much cash, it is ripe for tax fraud, especially when you're forcing them to pay tax on the gross revenue. I mean, come on.
Right.
You're forcing them to pay all this tax, and then they're sitting on all this cash. I'm not endorsing tax fraud, but come on.
If it looks like a duck, quacks like a duck.
Fucking quacks like a duck. Come on.
They're going to have to do something. They're not even trying to. They're just trying to be entrepreneurial, and they're getting slammed. I mean,
they're getting killed.
Because these places that have popped up, like the one by me on McKnight Road, I think it's called True Leaf, they had to put millions of dollars into this building.
Yeah.
I mean, it's gorgeous. I mean, they went roof off, new everything. I mean, they took it down to the metal studs and rebuilt a building. And it's gorgeous. I mean, it's one of the nicest buildings on McKnight Road. And apparently the guy didn't
get it. Paid cash. They had to pay the contractor in cash.
Yeah.
Or weed.
Weed. Hey, man. I do see that truck there, that same truck in the drive-thru all the time. I think if we want to talk about the scumbag politicians again, I feel bad for politicians. Nobody gives them any credit.
I don't feel bad.
I think that they're
all.
sitting around doing shit like this to pass the buck for a little bit until they can really figure out how they can actually tax it, because they're losing out on a lot of money. Allegheny County will figure it out first. There's a 5% drink tax. There's a 2.5% rental car tax. They'll be the first ones in the world to figure it out.
Drink tax is 7%.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I just lowered it for everybody.
Here, you want my take on this? I think that this right here is quite convenient timing. And the fact that it takes time for the DEA to actually make this change, because here's the way this, from what I read about this is the DEA did this under pressure from the Biden administration.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to, right now, the DEA made the adjustment. The Biden administration has to sign off on it, which he pressured them to do it. So, of course, he's going to do it. And then it's going to take a couple months for it to go into effect. And
what happens in November?
Yeah.
There's something that's going on.
I think there's something. I'm going to have to check my calendar.
Thanksgiving?
But I'm pretty sure that I think this is just phase one. And I honestly think that we're going to see major changes into the federal legalization of marijuana by November, right before Election Day.
Sitting around like, hey man.
And I was reading, and I don't know if it was in this article. I don't think it was in this article, because this is just basically explaining the law change. I was reading a lot in AP that it's something like 70% of American people are for 100% legalization of marijuana.
I think it changes the whole game too, because I know people that would go to Colorado and be like, I smoke weed in Colorado, but they don't smoke weed here, but they just did it because it was legal there, and they don't want to break the rules. Because there's people that really, there are sheep in this world that won't break the rules.
There's another part of this.
Well, unlike you driving the wrong way down a one-way street.
Come on, Joe. That was 10 years ago.
Mr. Record.
There's another part of this that is interesting, and one of the things that I guess they're trying to navigate the implications of it, and I think is a big reason why more people aren't doing it. It's federally illegal, and because it's federally illegal, if you go and you buy a gun or get a gun permit, a concealed weapons permit, there is a line on both of those applications where you have to check the box yes or no. Do you or are you an unlawful user of marijuana or any illegal narcotics? And if you check the box yes, you're ineligible for that gun or the concealed carry permit.
But if you have a medical card?
Well, if you have a medical card, then you're an unlawful user. Because federally, it's illegal.
Yeah, I know that there was some like fake news about how like if your spouse got a medical card, you had to turn all your guns in.
Yeah, I don't see how that could be, because your spouse is the user.
Because the other question on that line, when you're buying a gun, are you buying this for yourself and promise to not let anybody else use it? Well, you're checking that box too. Yeah, I mean, that's a unique concept.
But there's a big argument about that, because I think that holds a lot of people back, because they don't want to necessarily give up their right to carry a firearm or to own a firearm. And right now, it's illegal to do both.
Right. I think the misconception of everybody that smokes weed as a stoner, that's gone forever. Gone. And like the Dazed and Confused movie is outdated. They should remake it probably. But I just think
just a bunch of high functioning like business owners,
and
like
three dudes on a podcast smoking weed,
like just killing it.
Yeah,
like, oh, this is who does that now.
Yeah, it's totally swung around. I mean, it used to be a gateway drug. I don't know. I teach their own. I mean, that like I always say it on here. It's like common sense. Like if you smoke a pound of marijuana a month, maybe go seek help.
Yeah, anything can be abused 100%. And I know, and I've heard awful stories of people that abuse anything. And I know people personally that abuse that, but I also know people that abuse alcohol and abuse
women
and gambling.
Yeah.
And many, many other things that are not illegal.
There's a great donut shop in Key West. I believe it's called Glazed, and their slogan for their business is all things in moderation, including moderation. So
yeah, I mean, anything can be abused, but anything in moderation. And I know a lot of high functioning people that use it responsibly. And I never did growing up. And
I'm probably like on two. I could count. I used to be one hand. Now it's probably two hands. The amount of times I've smoked marijuana. I mean, I just don't. It kills me. Like, I'm not a functioning pothead at all. If I smoke pot, I'm done. Like,
as I've gotten older, I've been surprised by the people around me that are completely high functioning, successful
potheads.
People that I have a ton of respect for that do it regularly.
Yeah.
It's way more common now than ever before. And I think way more common than most people realize.
And like before, like 10, 15 years ago, if you had somebody that came to work smelling like pot, you almost felt like you had to have a conversation with them.
Yep.
Now you almost feel like you can't have a conversation. Like everybody does it. It's like,
go walk down Liberty Avenue.
Yeah.
You'd think it was legalized a year ago, 2 years ago.
Yeah, if they come in smelling like it now, it may have just been because of the walk to work.
Right.
Do you tip at the dispensary? That is my question. You tip your weed man. There's a lot of people out of work because of dispensaries. You know, like there's some people that were making big money tax free that are out of work.
Are we worried about the drug dealers now? Are you referring to the drug dealers?
Yeah, man.
Okay.
I mean,
entrepreneurs.
Inflation hits them too.
They're entrepreneurs, right?
I have a guy that we're going to get on here.
Where we're going now?
I know. I have a guy an ex-drug dealer. I'm trying to get him to come on the show.
Oh,
he's done this step by step with like what you're allowed to do, and now he does like big dinners. Like they'll come to your house and put on a dinner, and everything is infused with marijuana.
Oh,
from the butter to the dessert and everything. So I think like I've had some of the he has a food truck friend. I forget what the name is. The food was delicious.
Hand in hand.
And I'm like, man, if I could get that infused with marijuana, maybe I wouldn't drink so much. So I don't know. We'll see. To be determined what happens there. But it's like an elephant in the room some places. But what else we got tonight, boys? There's something else going on there.
Justin Bieber's having a baby. Who gives a shit?
No shit.
Paul Skeens debuts this weekend. So if you're an LSU Tiger fan or a Pirates fan, somehow after all these decades of losing.
How do we like the Tom Brady
the roast?
The roast. Yeah, it's very good.
Let's go back to the Skeens thing. So on the way here, I heard a number that they will sell more tickets, including standing room only, to the Pirates game on Saturday.
Yeah.
Than the wild card game in 15.
Is that right?
So it is an economic impact for the city of Pittsburgh.
Just one player.
That just had 0 NFL playoff games for the last 5 years at home. And in the last 2 years, 0 NHL playoff games.
It's supposed to rain Saturday.
Pittsburgh don't care. It snowed on opening day before. So I just hope that it goes for them because they could really use a small win.
Yeah. Right.
So they did. But, okay, now back to the Brady roast.
Tom Brady.
That is the funniest 3 hours of television
I
have watched in a very, very long time.
Yeah, and I enjoyed it.
They might have just been going after our demographic, but it was pretty funny.
I don't know. I think it was kind of refreshing. Everybody just kind of had a good time. Everybody was busting each other's chops. It was like...
No one was looking over their shoulder to see if they offended anybody.
Outrageously offensive.
Weren't allowed to offend Robert Kraft.
Robert Kraft was off limits. But you know what? He's like 190 years old.
He was drinking at the end. I was like...
He's the richest dude there. I mean, who gives a shit?
Yeah, I don't know. Brady might have more money than him now.
Brady's like... I mean, it was like a father figure. He was like, yeah, it's just off limits. I get it. I mean...
And it was probably part of the skit, too.
I don't know. I saw a bunch of clips today from some of the comedians that were there that were like, yeah, I think that was real. Like...
They probably were like, all right, edit that part out of our act. We're not going to touch it.
Schultz was saying that he had one of his jokes was supposed to end in #BobCraft and was told by one of the producers, cut that piece out. We're asking everybody to leave Robert Kraft out of the jokes. And then whenever Ross went after him, he was like, ooh. And then after that happened, he was like, yeah, no, that was like, and he made a comment about how on this podcast he was on that it was real, and he's like, fucking Brady's a boss. Like, live television, everybody was there for him, and he got up and was like, cut that shit out. We'll pull the fucking plug right now.
Yeah, I guess Jeff Ross.
Jeff Ross, yeah, I think that's it. Yeah,
he was on Dan Patrick and said that it was like no big deal. It was all good. Like, no hard feelings. But Giselle didn't get a pass, or Gazelle, or Giselle, or
whatever her name is, the jiu-jitsu girl.
Yeah. Dude, and I heard Brady made 30 mil
off that show,
off the roast. Yeah,
really?
Yeah.
Oh, I'd have sat there and taken it for 30 million.
Yeah.
I mean,
wow.
30 grand.
I didn't know that.
You guys, I'll sit here for a year, and you guys can say whatever you want about me. You got a tough skin, and I think part of it for his future and his career, he's got a $375 million deal with Fox. I think, okay, take your shots, get the shit out of the way. We're moving on from this.
Drew Bledsoe was funny.
Dude, hilarious. I didn't know he owned his own winery.
I think he was drunk.
Hammered.
Probably.
Dude, I didn't know he owned his own winery.
Me either.
It's like legit.
Is it?
Yeah, it's in Wallu, Washington, state of. And I looked it up. He's got some $50 bottles of wine. He's doing well for himself.
That's good.
I mean, he's not doing Brady well for himself, but not too many guys are.
Yeah.
And it's the first on TV, at least, like, time I've watched anybody like skate near 9/11 on a joke. Whenever Brady said that day in September where two jets flew into Drew Bledsoe.
Yeah.
I was like, man, and that, I mean, we've been adults the whole time post 9/11, and I don't remember anybody really.
I didn't realize
that line.
When he was saying that, I was like, holy shit, was that in September of 2001? And were they playing the Jets, or did holy shit, did he just go there?
Yeah.
I couldn't believe he went there, but I think Brady was funny. I think he did well.
He probably paid someone a lot of money to write them jokes.
Yeah, his joke to Kim about Kanye was pretty on point. That was funny.
Yeah, I think that's something that we'll see more of, those roasts again. I mean, those come and go.
They do.
They used to be on FX.
But that was a good group, and I think that there's a good chance that I think they found a good group, and I think Kevin Hart, Jeff Ross, he's like
the roast master.
Yeah. Tony Hinchcliffe, Andrew Schultz.
Yeah,
Nikki
Glazer.
Glazer. Yeah. She killed it. I mean, those ones, man, they killed it.
I mean, I didn't think I'd get into it as much as I did, but as a Steeler fan, I was like, yeah, give it to him.
Yeah.
You know, I was saying earlier, I think the only person I really wish would have came out was Chris Hoke, because he's been roasting Brady for 15 years here in Pittsburgh. And we all know that they filmed those practices.
Mm-hmm.
Brady he admitted that he deflated footballs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So good for him. He probably feels better today.
Yeah. I enjoyed it. I thought it was funny. I like a lot of those comics.
Maybe we'll get Brady on the podcast.
Yeah. He's got nothing else to do.
Once he starts his media career.
Yeah. He'll need somebody to help him.
Yeah.
I'd really like to get Giselle's jiu-jitsu instructor and see how he's feeling after all that. He's like winning.
He's probably doing pretty good.
Yeah.
But he comes from a whole family of jiu-jitsu masters.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Vitale family. There's like 5 generations.
The Gracies. I don't know.
Yeah, it was funny.
It's the week in review, gents. What else is going on?
Do we have one more other hot topic? We had tipping. We had marijuana. Crooked politicians.
Tipping. No, that's it.
Back to the marijuana thing. Will this have any impact on previous arrests?
No.
Stay in jail. We don't care.
Yeah, this article said that as of right now, there are no changes in the charges.
So locally, we had some stuff that was going on with the USGA. Did you guys follow this at all?
No.
So they've applied for a $2.3 million grant from the state of Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania's like done this package where they're going to give grants to businesses that are bringing in large events. And the US Open is one of the largest events. So they're filing for this grant to improve road structures, on-site stuff like bus stations and stuff like that. And they put a timeline. The job completion is like 2026. Well, the Open's in 2025. And people like are commenting on all this shit. Like, don't you think they have enough money? Like, why does the state have to give? Well, they should be giving it to the schools and stuff like that. And like I always like play the devil's advocate with shit. It's like, don't you think the USGA is giving some money to the state when they get here? Like,
Well, it's going to the roads?
not public roads, like on-site development stuff for easy access.
See.
And and the part that's lost here is when the Trib writes the article, people are thinking it's just Oakmont. Well, I think Marion is over towards Philadelphia, and they're also hosting the U.S. Open like 2 or 3 times in the next like 10 years. So like there's going to be a ton of U.S. Opens in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. So if they're asking for $2.3 million, I'm like, well, what school district's giving $80 million back to this Commonwealth? Like give them the money, you know?
More than 230,000 fans attended the last U.S. Open in Oakmont, making it one of the largest crowds ever.
Yeah.
USGA applied for $4.8 million expansion for the Oakmont Country Club, including private roads, staging grounds, shuttles, mission facilities.
Yeah. So they're asking for half the money. I think it's a $10 million project. But I think give it to them because they're bringing 230,000, and there's definitely a line on that ticket where your fees and they're getting a percentage. I mean, it's good. We had a guest on here that was impacted by the U.S. Open being here. She pays income tax on all that money.
Not to mention what it does to the local economy during that week that they're here.
Yeah, I would
The
imagine.
The Open is anticipated to bring in $77 million in direct consumer spending.
Right.
The restaurants, the hotels, the amount of money that we spent.
Oh, merchandise is probably one of the biggest ones, and we pay 7% sales tax here in Allegheny County, right? Mm-hmm. So
reach out to Jerry about the Augusta rule.
That's right. Let's rent your house.
Yeah, I figure we just keep something positive on the books. Let the USGA know we love them, in case they want to set us up right. Media row.
We'll be there. We'll find a way there.
All right, well, that's a week long bullshit session, I guess. You have anything else you want to get off your chest?
Yeah, what's new with you, man?
Rolling out a new website based on our discussion about non-competes, so I can lean into my professional background. It's mulching season. Just finished up a kitchen, so I look for my content. TikTok, social media, I'm out there.
Nice.
What else?
What is your website?
My wife's loans were officially forgiven, so I'm $20,000 richer.
Nice.
AAconcepts.com. So I bought that domain. There's a lot of people that use that. I don't know if I have trademark concerns, but I own that actual website.
A lot of people use
AA Concepts. So if you look that up on Facebook, there's a bunch of Anthony's and Austins and people that use that, but I own the website.
None of them were smart enough to buy the .com.
Yep.
Perfect.
So I own that. That'll be rolled out probably this weekend.
Nice.
What else?
You doing the work yourself?
Son's birthday. Yeah, I do. So I do that professionally. I pay people, I don't pay people, but I run teams that do that for a bank in town. But familiar with web designs and things. So
cool.
There's templates and stuff out there. So check me out there.
Yeah, look forward to seeing it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, well, that wraps up episode 137.
26. We've been doing this for 6 months. As of today, this is our halfway through a year.
Holy smokes.
So we're going to have to do a little plug. So if you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe.
Yes.
If you're listening to this on anything else, subscribe, follow, whatever it is. We want to subscribe. Listen.
Yeah.
Yep.
Share it.
If you enjoy it, share it.
It takes 3 seconds to share.
We get a lot of feedback. People enjoy the content. Trying to put out good content. We are bringing guests back.
If you want to be on the show or know someone that you think would be good for the show, reach out to one of us three or through social media.
Maybe we could start like a little link, like Tippy. You could tip us.
Tippy, if you want to tip us, if you want to be a sponsor for the podcast,
sponsorship is available. We'll have that sheet rolling out soon.
Yeah, we have a sponsor
levels.
list, sponsor sheet and stuff. But
what else? Shout out to Nate, our producer.
Nate, woohoo, Nate.
Cigar aficionado, if you want to help him out.
You smoke cigars. I've known you for 26 weeks, and I've never seen you not smoke a cigar, actually. So
he sits in the corner and smokes and watches us. Make sure.
Outside, don't worry about it. He's not smoking in here. For the record, if anybody that owns this building is listening to this podcast.
If you're running for politics, go ahead and shout out.
If you're on council, go after yourself.
Councils,
you're in
local
the Senate,
councils, engineers, architects,
day trading on
zoning officers.
Law you're doing, go fuck off.
Yeah.
But, anyway.
All right, well, thanks, guys.
Until next week. Thanks, guys.
Oh, fuck.
Thank you for listening to Between Two Bridges, a business-to-business podcast. Find and follow us on your preferred podcast streaming platform. Like and subscribe, and leave us a rating and review. You can join us socially on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. Yes, we still call it Twitter. You can email the show at info@betweentwobridgespodcast.com. Until next time, make it till you rake it.